It's the dawn of a new day right here on the early line, and it's time to rise and grind. Why is it a new day? Why is it a fresh start? The NBA has a doubleheader tonight on their opening night. So that means October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, and June. That's ridiculous, by the way, for an NBA season. But that's what you have on deck. All the action that you know we're going to cover right here on the early line and the SportsGrid Network. Did you know last night? Did you follow along? Favorites ruled the world in the NFL. The Detroit Lions and also the Houston Texans as an underdog, they got bounced because why? Seattle was the favorite in that game. Back-to-back games last night, 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock. But did you also know there was a Game 7 last night and the Mariner fans were celebrating all the way through until they weren't? Thank you to George Springer. So much to get to over the next 2 hours, Joe Ranieri. We're ready to do it. It's your boy DRS. It's Joe, and away we go.
NBA, is it too early to mention also 2 weeks away from the start of college basketball?
That's too much.
Donnie?
It's too much.
There's a lot. It's a lot here. So yes, get your beauty rest because it's going to be a heck of a ride over the next 5 months.
I watched the football game last night, game number 1, Detroit and Tampa. I did not watch game number 2, the Texans and the Seattle Seahawks, but most of us did watch game number 7. Let's get caffeinated, Joe.
Oh, yes. Donnie, got to tell you, we need to talk about the magic, the beauty, the absolute gut-wrenching agony and ecstasy of a Game 7, because last night the Blue Jays and the Mariners gave us yet another masterpiece and a reminder that there is absolutely nothing better in sports than a Game 7 win or go home. And you can forget about your regular season stats, forget about your analytics for a minute here, because Game 7 is a different animal. It's primal. It's every pitch, every swing, every single play feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The pressure is ridiculously suffocating, and it creates legends, or GOATs in this case. And last night, GOAT again. He is reborn in Toronto. Welcome back, George Springer, who Yankee fans know very well. A lot of fans know very well from his days with the Houston Astros. But this was a guy who got booed relentlessly in Seattle earlier in the series. This is a guy who also got drilled in the kneecap just a couple of days ago and was visibly grimacing with every step. So what happens? Well, down 3-1 in the 7th inning of Game 7 at home, facing elimination. What does he do? He steps up and he launches a go-ahead 3-run home run that sends the city of Toronto into absolute craziness and thus punches their ticket to the World Series. That's not just a home run, Donnie. That's like one of those all-time Kirk Gibson-esque moments of guts and glory hobbling around the bases. And on the flip side, you got to feel for the Mariners, right? The only franchise that never reached the World Series, and they lose in the most heartbreaking fashion, right? Their manager, all sorts of questionable pitching decisions, leaving his best reliever in the bullpen during the biggest moment of the game. It's a decision that's going to haunt Seattle fans forever. But that's the beauty and the brutality of a Game 7. Depending on which side you had a ticket on last night, you'll remember where you were for a long time. It's pure, it's uncut emotion. It's why we watch. It's why we bet on sports, Donnie, to be completely honest. So congratulations to the Blue Jays. You slayed the dragon. Enjoy the pennant. But as a lifelong Yankees fan, the Dodgers are waiting. And that might be a whole different kind of heartbreak for the city of Toronto.
That should be here. And by the way, like those big moments, we understand they make a lot of money and they're in those pressure situations. But I can't imagine coming through like that in that moment, because you're right about it. We live sometimes, I'm a Phillies fan. I really could care less who won that game, but I was enthralled watching like the crowd explosion on that home run and George Springer jumping around the bases. It was just elation. And the last time as a Philadelphia Phillies fan I can remember that was when Bryce Harper hit a 2-run home run against San Diego to put them into the World Series. Like they called it Bedlam at the Bank. Those moments being there live or just watching it on your TV, not even a fan of those teams, that's something special to remember. That's why we love Game 7s. Everything on the line. Give me that superstar that rises to the occasion. He got that last night, Toronto, with George Springer. But then Dodgers, Toronto coming up. That's going to start Friday. We got plenty of time to game plan for that. In the meantime, the early lineup, Joe, we did have a doubleheader in the NFL. Did you know each one of those quarterbacks last night only threw for 1 touchdown pass? Nobody threw for 2. An ugly game in the Pacific Northwest. Joe Ranieri had an under on this game. I have no idea how it went over. The offenses were bad on both sides. Not a lot of passing, not a lot of rushing in this game, but 27-19. Why? Because you had tons of turnovers in this game. Seattle 5-2. Hey, even up their home record at 2-2 now. The Texans, get out of here, man. Just get out of here.
Yeah, no. Well, I'll tell you how it went over, Donnie. A strip sack fumble recovered in the end zone for a touchdown by the Texans is how it went over, because that's the only way they were really going to find the end zone outside of a prevent defense with 2 minutes left to go and an empty netter by Houston. Otherwise, they were absolutely horrific offensively, which is what we talked about, right? You're not all of a sudden in a bye week going to fix all your offensive line issues. When you can't rush the ball and you ask CJ Stroud to do it all, bad things are going to happen. And I don't know how you lose the turnover battle 4-1, Donnie, and still manage to win the game by almost double digits. It's kind of crazy, but welcome to Seattle. I guess the 12th man is alive and well.
To get, like, if you say coming into the game, Joe, you're going to take the Houston Texans, I go, they're going to be +3 in the turnovers. That's an outright victory with ease. You don't have to sweat. They didn't even cover the spread. They lost 27-19. And I'm not saying that you got to be on the public side. But the San Francisco 49ers take on Houston next week. The 49ers are getting healthier here. Nico Collins will be down. Good luck, Texans, next week in that football game. Other part of the doubleheader last night, you watched the Detroit Lions, which I liked. My best bet was -5.5 on the Lions. They covered that spread. They were fantastic. They were a better defense without like 8 other players in the secondary. It doesn't make sense, but they look good. And you know who else looked good? Jahmyr Gibbs, man. That speed, Joe.
Dude, he's one of those guys that has that other gear, Donnie. Like when he drops it, and you feel like he still has another gear after that too, which is even crazier. I think they had him timed on that 75-yard touchdown run at 23 miles per hour. And you're just not catching him. It's ridiculous. But great job by a banged up secondary and a defense of the Detroit Lions, who did a great job limiting the offense of Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucks. That was pretty impressive last night.
Yeah, Bucks threw 50 times. That's what they were supposed to do. But you couldn't tell me if there's any starters missing in that secondary. They were absolutely phenomenal all the way through. Mike Evans, concussion and a broken clavicle. Not too sure we even see him the rest of the season here. Tough break there for the Buccaneers. Bryce Young, he'll be down. He's out versus the Bills next week. I don't think it would have mattered all that much either at that point, but he's down. And by the way, Carolina playing much better football. Comes at a tough time. Andy Dalton steps in now.
Oh, that's what you got the red rifle there for, man. Andy Dalton sitting in the wings, ready to go. No, it's going to be awful. Do not watch that game. That's going to be brutal, Donnie.
Tough one there. Jaden Daniels also suffered an injury. Their hamstrings are just going around right now. He's probably not going to play this week. They say it's not significant. Yeah, we'll determine that and see when he comes back.
Yeah, well, exactly. Monitor. Again, that's such a bad team with a bad defense. I'm not sure I'm rushing him back anytime soon here, Donnie.
George Springer, as we said, a absolute titanic shot to lift the Blue Jays into the World Series. An incredible 4-3 victory over the Mariners in a wild series from start to finish.
Yeah, again, right guy at the right time and the right moment, Donnie, and he delivers. I mean, the Joe Carter, George Springer combo comparison will live on.
Albert Pujols looking to be a manager. It doesn't look like it's going to be with the Angels here. Could it be maybe with the Orioles or somebody else?
Oh, I think it's going to be with somebody else for sure, but it looks like they couldn't get on the same page for contract and those types of things, which is pretty important after all.
Christian Brown signs a contract, 5 years, $125 million. Can he just go back to being Braun? Can we just make him Braun here? Every time I look at his last name, I struggle, even though I understand how to pronounce it. That money should be able to pay him to get a new pronunciation on his last name, Joe.
Just call him a multi-millionaire, because that's exactly what he is now, Donnie. Pretty good, too.
Spread lines coming up next. Open up the paper. What do you got? Oh, look, it's Joe and Donnie going over the information that you need to know right here on the SportsGrid Network. We'll be back.
After the first week of football, who'd have thought Alabama would be right back on the top? After a couple losses, Texas would have a chance to be back where they are. And we've all kind of watched Texas A&M and Ole Miss kind of jump right in the hunt. And I mean, that Texas A&M's kind of become my dark horse because they can beat you offensively and they can beat you defensively.
The Bowden Blitz, only on SportsGrid.
Better bets $90,000, FanDuel, New Jersey, LA. Oh, it must be some sharp hockey better. Yeah, or a rich kid with nothing better to do on a Tuesday night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is funny. God rest his soul, Dave Sheriff always used to say, if he told me this one time, Gabe, he told me 1,000. It's not how much someone bets that moves line, it's who's bet.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
I think they are fringes.
Yeah, that might be a push. That's a preference thing, I think. Do you want to be in the SEC? Do you want to live in Happy Valley versus Norman? You know, maybe you can go down to Texas.
I would take Norman.
Well, to go down and get talent out of Texas.
Yes.
But I think you got to have alumni, president, athletic director that are all on board and committed to winning. And you need to have a fan base that shows up in sports.
The Bobby Carpenter Show, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Get out your spread lines, football edition. You say, wait a minute, football edition. Doubleheader last night, Monday Night Football. That's done. Tuesday and Wednesday. The NBA is going to be playing. Thursday, you got to wait till football. No. We're in the midst of an NCAA NFL action-packed 50-day stretch, which will show us each and every day at least one football game, whether it's in the NFL or if it's in college football. So those spread lines start tonight, Joe. Kennesaw State taking on Florida International. How about this? A look-ahead line at FanDuel, -1.5 as a favorite to Florida International. Completely role reversal. Kennesaw State, most outlets, -3.5 and a total of 49.5. Tuesday night college football. The spread line for Kennesaw State and FIU, Joe, is what?
Well, that's why this game's important here tonight, not because most people have any idea what a Kennesaw State is or FIU, although Pitbull Stadium is actually becoming very popular here in South Florida. I will say this, though, Donnie, and you nailed it right there. Some places had this look-ahead line as FIU -2. And then all of a sudden, this game becomes available. And what happens? Like you said, it has been nothing but Kennesaw State money. Now, you have to ask yourself, is the public running to the window to bet Kennesaw State as soon as that line opens? No, it's not. These early week games in Conference USA and MAC, not public favorites. So that's only coming from one spot and one spot only. And I agree with it, by the way. Kennesaw State, to me, is the right side. Better defense, better offense, better special teams on the road. I think they handle business here tonight.
Let's go back to the days where BYU was winning national championship out here. Was Steve Young at quarterback? You got maybe Jim McMahon at quarterback. Ty Detmer, Heisman Trophy. Unbeaten BYU takes on Iowa State. They're going to go on the road, Joe. This favorite, though, opened up Iowa State around that pick'em range. They're now 2.5-point favorites as the home team here. 7-0 BYU, number 11 in the country. The spread line for this game, Joe, is what?
Well, this is interesting, Donnie, because this is one of those games and spots in which the books go, you know what? We're going to put them as a pick'em, and we're going to let some of the influential bettors earlier in the week, the guys that we respect, we're going to let them move this line for us one way or the other. And they've moved the line here, right? Up to, 2.5 now? So you got to figure, all right, is BYU coming off of always a big rivalry there, the Holy War with Utah, which they won at home. You've got Iowa State coming off a bye week. I'm curious to see if 3 gets there, Donnie. That's what I'm waiting to see here over the next couple of days. Will we eventually get to -3? If we do, Well, I may have to take that game here, Donnie, but keep an eye on this line as the week moves on.
How about a Saturday ACC game kickoff at noon? SMU goes on the road to take on Wake Forest. The look-ahead line's as high as a touchdown, Joe, towards SMU. That's not the case right now. That's dropped to 3.5 at just about every outlet I'm taking a look at here. 54.5 as a total. SMU, Wake Forest. The spread line here, Joe, what is it?
Yeah, I saw 5s, 4.5s, and 5, maybe even a 5.5 at open, Donnie, and all of a sudden, well, we're starting to see Wake Forest money now here, and I've been telling everyone, Wake Forest is a bet-on team for me here. This is a very good team. They actually got the Oregon State coach fired after going out there and absolutely destroying them. And I think they have a week off. They're coming off their bye. They get to take on an SMU team that, let's face it, Donnie, not exactly impressive this year here. A lot of mistakes offensively, not as good defensively. Now they have to go to Wake to take them on. Yeah, it makes all the sense that this continues to go down. I'm wondering when the buyback happens here, Donnie, because at some point I do think SMU money is coming back in. So if you like Wake, hold off. I think you can get a better number than the 3.5 that's out there right now.
Let's get some spread lines in the NFL, Joe. On Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff. And by the way, TBD, you saw it yesterday. Aaron Glenn's like, I don't really know who my quarterback is going to be. Which game are we talking about? That's the Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Flacco under center. We know who'll be there. The Jets, we don't know who'll be there. But also understand this. A heavy favorite now for Cincinnati sits at 6.5. I don't think it matters who the quarterback is under center for those New York Jets. What's the spread line here, Joe?
Donnie, the look-ahead line was 2.5, all right? And now we're looking at 6s here, okay? And even higher, 6.5. We'll probably get to 7, Donnie. That's how bad it is for the Jets, who have absolutely, you're talking about two teams that a couple of weeks ago seemed to be destined for the cellar, right? Well, all of a sudden, Joe Flacco comes in, breathes some life into this Cincinnati team. Now they've got some hope while the Jets continue to be absolutely putrid. I'm going to wait to see if the key number of 7 shows up, Donnie. It's a line that we'll keep an eye on because there is no reason for anybody to want to bet the Jets on the road here. It's total dysfunction. But if you get to that key number of 7, Donnie, it's going to be very hard not to pull the trigger on him here.
Let me, again, we're going to get to this Chicago-Baltimore game in a second here. But understand, it can't be Justin Fields, right? It can't be. Am I wrong on this?
Nope. No. Oh,
Wait,
no, I mean, he's looking for the platform because he wants to spread the love and the joy. But that's not going to help you actually throw the football. And listen, quite honestly, I think you do him a disservice putting him out under there because, listen, if you're a quarterback above the shoulders, it's never been about athletic ability with him, right? It's always been about what's above the shoulders. And right now, he's talking to himself. So maybe a little time on the sideline, not the worst thing in the world that for Justin Fields here to maybe straighten this thing out here a little bit moving forward.
I understand this. Tyrod Taylor wasn't good last week, but if anybody knows how the NFL work week works is Tyrod Taylor gets no snaps with the starters when he's not going to start. If he's named the starter, full game plan for Tyrod Taylor. It has to be better than what you saw last week. Chicago and Baltimore. This is where the sharps all piled up here. Lamar Jackson expected to be back against the Chicago Bears. The line, 6.5. This team has been putrid. Is it just Lamar Jackson getting back in that lineup? Now all of a sudden we're seeing a touchdown favorite, Joe? The spread line for the Bears and the Ravens is what?
Well, that's it, Donnie, right? There's no way this line opens up 6.5 for the Ravens coming out of bye if the market doesn't think he's under center here. So he will, in all likelihood, be returning to the lineup there and be the quarterback for the Ravens. My question is, once it's made official, does this thing hit 7, Donnie? Maybe even 7.5. This is another one of those wait and see.
I bet it does. And by the way, you know who else is a superstar? Jackson Smith-Njigba. This man is a 100-yard machine. Let's go over what happened last night in the NFL.
After the first week of football, who'd have thought Alabama would be right back on the top? After a couple losses, Texas would have a chance to be back where they are. And we've all kind of watched Texas A&M and Ole Miss kind of jump right in the hunt. And, that Texas A&M's kind of become my dark horse because they can beat you offensively and they can beat you defensively.
The Bowden Blitz, only on SportsGrid.
Better bets, $90, $90,000, FanDuel, New Jersey, LA. Oh, it must be some sharp hockey better. Yeah, or a rich kid with nothing better to do on a Tuesday night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is funny. God rest his soul, Dave Sheriff always used to say, if he told me this one time, Gabe, he told me 1,000. It's not how much someone bets that moves line, it's who's betting.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
I think they are fringes.
Yeah, that might be a push. That's a preference thing, I think. Do you want to be in the SEC? Do you want to live in Happy Valley versus Norman? Maybe you can go down to Texas.
I would take Norman.
Well, to go down and get talent out of Texas.
Yes.
But I think you've got to have alumni, president, athletic director that are all on board and committed to winning. And you need to have a fan base that shows up in sports.
The Bobby Carpenter Show, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Doubleheader in Monday Night Football last night. It's the early line, recapping all of what went down on that doubleheader. It's Donnie Rightside and it's Joe Ranieri here. 24-9 was the final score. The Detroit Lions pick up the easy victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their defense was sensational last night. Jumped out to an early lead, and quite frankly, should have been a little bit more. Some missed opportunities on some field goals and some turnovers on downs where you thought the Lions probably would be able to extend this lead. Coming into the game, Joe, mid-50s was the total in this one. Easily stays under. And why did it stay under? The Detroit Lions defense was really good last night. Igbuka comes back for this game off injury. Mike Evans comes back off this game from injury. And you say to yourself, they should be able to attack that secondary. But Baker Mayfield threw 50 times, 228 yards. How about 4.6 yards per attempt at that point? 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and a QBR of 66.1. Completely shut down the running game. The superstar last night might have been Jahmyr Gibbs, might have been Amon-Ra St. Brown. But for me, the gold star goes to that defense of the Lions last night.
Yeah, and again, I don't think we're just selling it enough on how undermanned that defense truly was. I mean, they had starting edge rushers missing. They had 2 starting cornerbacks, both starting safeties were not in that game. It was a duct tape and Elmer's glue out behind the linebackers there, even on the defensive front. But you know what? Still held Baker Mayfield, who has been lighting teams up. We just saw them light up a pretty good defense in the Seattle Seahawks a couple of weeks ago. But my goodness, they held them in check in a big way here. But they did what they have done for a while now, Donnie, right? They make you have to play catch up. So they make you extremely one-dimensional. And when you have a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs going for 218 from scrimmage, 82 yards receiving, 136 on 17 carries, you're going to have to throw the ball 50 times if you're going to get back into it. And boy, they made him one-dimensional, and they made him pay in a big way, that Detroit defense.
Yeah, both of these defenses really were able to pressure the quarterback. 4 sacks against Baker Mayfield, 4 sacks against Jared Goff, but it was the Lions that were just the better team overall. And sometimes just a 78-yard run to really kickstart that offense, which you saw Jahmyr Gibbs do. 17 carries for 136 yards. Then he chips in, Joe, 3 catches for 82 yards, the ultimate weapon in football right now. You take a look at Jahmyr Gibbs on that same playing field. It's like, a Bijan Robinson, game breakers, but it just looks so much faster when Jahmyr Gibbs is in the game. But if we focus on the quarterbacks last night, 50 passing attempts, as we said, for Baker Mayfield. Only 228 in the air with 1 touchdown. Jared Goff, 20 of 29, more efficient, but only 241 for him, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. It wasn't a great night for the offenses that we thought, because the defenses were really starring at that point, but also, when you look at the Buccaneers, they're 5-2. My best bet on the show yesterday was the Detroit Lions to handle his business. They are phenomenal at home. But the expectations for that Tampa offense to move the football, as we stated, was due to the wide receiving core and also Baker Mayfield being able to push the football downfield against a secondary where I've never seen a team with this many injuries and suspensions in the secondary than the Detroit Lions had. I was surprised. Now, granted, you saw the way this game played out. Mike Evans finishes with 4 targets, no catches, a broken clavicle, and a concussion. He's going to be down for some time. But that offense was stagnant last night, and that's not something we were used to seeing here over the first couple games of the season.
No, I mean, listen, and kudos to the defense. Todd Bowles, the reason this game landed way under is you kind of had an idea that, listen, Detroit defensively at home, they were going to be able to get to Baker Mayfield. The question was, whether or not having Mike Evans back, Ibuka was in that in the starting lineup. They had both of them going. Would they be able to take advantage of that, secondary there that had all backup players? And the answer was no. But the fact that as good as Gibbs was, the fact that this game, you held them to under 28 points here, under 30 points, when that total, Donnie, prior to kickoff was bet up to, 54? At one point yesterday, 54.5. I mean, the over money coming in on that game by the public yesterday was crazy, and it was woefully short of going over.
Celebrations abound here. And by the way, taking a look at the picture here, I'm usually up on social media. Is that Superman? Excuse me, Spider-Man? Like, what was the celebration last night for this?
That was interesting. That was, no, I have no idea what that was, actually. Although it looked kind of cool when they did it in the thing. It looked like a kind of Superman situation, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. 2 Supermen there on that offense, no doubt about it, as they pick up that victory. And Detroit starts to gain that steam now. 5-2 on the season, 3-0 at home. A lot of stuff to digest from this one. But if you're looking for the Buccaneers to go on the road and get a win, they hung around early. But quite frankly, Joe, the 24-9, it should have been higher scoring that from a Detroit side of things. They just really put it down, and Jahmyr Gibbs was that superstar last night. What do you have? 17 carries, 3 catches, 20 total touches for over 200 yards of offense and 2 touchdowns. That's what the Stars do. Let's head up to the Pacific Northwest next and take a look at what happened to the Houston Texans offense. Ooh.
And sometimes your offense can benefit your defense.
Yeah.
They are going to need to sustain drives, I believe. They can't go 3 and out, and all of a sudden Price and Jeremiah Love are ripping your defense for 5 and 8 yards per carry. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day. So we'll see how this game plays out. I do favor the rushing attack and physicality of Notre Dame. The way they're running the football right now is as good as anybody.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I think I just smiled for the first time in relation to this game.
Yeah, my misery, right? My misery cost you a smile.
That was the price.
This game is like watching paint dry. I mean, 21-0 in the first half. We have no action in the second. Brian Thomas, glass house. The guy can't stay on the field. His stone hands today.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
You don't worry, too much. I don't think Kendrick Bourne is a bad play. He's probably a good streamer, but I don't think he's going to get you 10 for 140 again. And he got you 10 for 140 again. And now he gets Mac Jones again this week playing quarterback. And Mac Jones has just found this connection. Now, you do have a returning George Kittle. That's going to put a wrinkle in this offense. Eventually, you should get a returning Brock Purdy. So Bourne's value is at its zenith. That's when you try to sell guys off.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
After the first week of football, who'd have thought Alabama would be right back on the top? After a couple losses, Texas would have a chance to be back where they are. And we've all kind of watched Texas A&M and Ole Miss kind of jump right in the hunt. And, that Texas A&M's kind of become my dark horse because They can beat you offensively and they can beat you defensively.
The Bowden Blitz, only on SportsGrid.
Game number 2 of the doubleheader last night saw the Seattle Seahawks with a victory 27-19 over the Houston Texans, and maybe some of the turnovers helped out to keep this game a little bit closer, but Seattle was the right side in this one. They did pick up the victory and get the cover, and also the game does go over the total. But Joe, I want to talk before we get to this game. The NFL has been throwing us many more doubleheaders on Monday nights than we've seen. It's almost like, hey, we love doubleheaders and we love to play overseas at this point, which will always draw criticism and/or is this the right move that the NFL wants to make? Bad football games on slippery surfaces over in London, checkmate, double headers where most of the country is fast asleep before we even get to game time here. How do you feel about the double headers on Monday Night Football? And also, do you like the staggered start time, 7:15 to 8:15, or do you prefer the 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock split here between East Coast and West Coast?
Well, I mean, listen, this is what we got last night was how it used to always be, right? You had one East Coast team, one West Coast team, and you move on from there, and that was the end of it when they had them. But to your point, they've added a few more of these now. We got extra games. We got a few more of these doubleheaders on Monday nights. The staggered start is much preferred on the East Coast, but I can tell you, Donnie, ask the guys in Vegas and California or Seattle. Do they mind the late start, the 10 o'clock start? They'll have a different answer than the rest of us here on the East Coast. So, hey, listen, it is what it is. As long as it makes the cash register ring for the NFL, they will do more of it, Donnie, one way or the other.
Like, I don't even have the, because I understand, the game's on middle of the day on a Sunday. There's, 5 or 6, 7 games at 1 o'clock is sort of sandwiched in. You don't get that national audience, which I understand the appeal of it. But to me, sometimes it doesn't make sense because the average sports fan doesn't probably like Seattle as a fan base, or as a fandom, or the Houston Texans. You put them on at 10 o'clock. It's almost like you're asking for 80% of the country to have no chance of watching this game at 10 o'clock or caring about the game, as opposed to putting it a little bit sooner where people have multiple devices. Like we always talk about, like the ratings that come in, Joe, old school Nielsen. Hey, you got to be in front of your one TV to watch. Well, we got to get 2 games on at separate times. That makes sense. But now when you impact the streaming, the cable, the packages that you get, everybody has multiple TVs. There's not one NFL fan or football fan that goes, wait a second, Monday Night Football, there's a game on 7:15, 8:15. I can't watch both of these. Well, then what do you do on a Sunday afternoon? Oh, no, there's 10 games on. I can only watch one. No, you don't. There's so many advantages to do that. I just think it's such a disadvantage for a 10 o'clock game on the West Coast where the ratings can't be good for it. And quite frankly, I don't know how many people were excited for Seattle Seahawks and Houston Texans. Anyway, but there's the soliloquy meaning into this. Seattle picks up the victory last night, Joe. 1 touchdown for Stroud, 1 touchdown for Darnold. Again, game number 1 last night. 1 touchdown for Mayfield, 1 touchdown for Goff. But clearly the best player in this game, and I'm such a big fan. Like when you move on from DK Metcalf, you better be sure you have your number 1 wide receiver. Jackson Smith-Njigba is phenomenal, Joe. 8 catches, $123, and a touchdown. He was the gold star last night for those Seahawks.
And he did it against, Derek Stingley Jr., who is one of the best, corners in the game. And that secondary and defense of Houston is nothing to laugh at. I mean, that is a legit defense. And they did their part last night. Unfortunately, the offense for Houston remains absolutely horrific. And it starts up front for them. But, I mean, good job, Seattle. You won a game on home, but it's clear that defense is the name of the game for you until you can figure some things out offensively, because they were a hot mess as well. You can't turn the ball over 4 times in a game, and you usually don't win that game, Donnie, but somehow they were able to do it. And they even gave him a strip sack fumble, Sam Darnold, in his own end zone for a touchdown. So the defense looked better offensively, scoring points, than the actual offense of Houston. It was an ugly game around the horn.
Kenneth Walker there for the Seattle Seahawks, 17 carries, 66 yards. With Zach Charbonnet had 12 carries for 49 yards, but he found pay dirt twice in that football game. But the focus to me really is on the Houston Texans. Open up the season playing bad football, embarrassing football. Sort of righted the ship, played a couple bad football teams, beat up on them. Okay, is that offense back? You saw last night it struggled. And also now with Nico Collins, 4 catches, 27 yards, got a concussion. He's going to be out the next week. I don't know where you go because you don't have the explosive running game. Like C.J. Stroud is your leading rusher last night with 25 yards. Congratulations. Nick Chubb looks like he's running with a tractor on his back here, can barely get up and down and make moves. And then there's Woody Marks, 10 carries, 15 yards last night. Without Nico Collins, this team feels like it's going to be a disaster on offense. It just does.
Yeah, and you're right, Donnie. I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon because there were a couple of spots in that game last night, 3rd and 1, 4 and 1, 4th and 1, where they just don't trust the offensive line to protect C.J. Stroud and give him an opportunity to drop back and do anything. I mean, they ran it into the teeth of the defense back-to-back times, Donnie, and turned the ball over on downs. They couldn't get 1 yard running the ball, and they didn't even want to try to send C.J. Stroud back in order to try to pass the ball. That's how little they trust Stroud and this offensive line here. It's not a good situation here, and I don't know that it gets any better because it's a shame because that defense is pretty good of Houston, but what difference does it make? They're always on the field. And sooner or later, they're all going to start breaking down.
Yeah, you take a look at the first couple games of the season, lose 14-9 to the Rams, bad offensive output. You lose 20-19 from the Buccaneers, average output. 17-10, terrible offensive output for the Jaguars. Then you get the 26-0 game over the Titans, which quite frankly, that game was 6-0 at the break. Wasn't a great performance, which you got a couple breaks at the end of the game on some turnovers. Then you laid out the Ravens, which seems like everybody does at that point. Then you go back into a shell last night. Now, hear me out on this. Because if you're healthy, this is the move you're supposed to make for the Houston Texans, Joe. 4 out of the next 5 games are at home, which includes the next 3. 49ers, Broncos, and Jaguars. But if we're down Nico Collins and playing bad football, I think the Niners beat them this week. The Broncos certainly will give them a run for the money, and so will the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then you go on the road and take on the Titans, which probably should be a win regardless. But then you come back home and take on the Buffalo Bills. This doesn't have that, hey, we're going to get it together season, specifically when you're usually saying, so obviously, the winner of the division has to go to the playoffs. And, hey, nobody runs away with anything. The Colts are awesome. So they're not going to win this division. This ain't a playoff season for the Titans or Texans, excuse me. It's a wrap.
No, it's not. And they got some things they need to figure out. And again, it's the second OC now for Stroud in a handful of years here, Donnie, right? You've got up and down the offensive line. They have no identity. You can't run the ball. When his rookie year, they had an identity at least, right? They were a power running football team. They didn't ask him to do all that much, but now he's in the shotgun. He's not under center. Now they can't run the ball. Now you're asking him to do, I don't know what this team is offensively, the Texans, and neither does C.J. Stroud or the Texans for that matter, Donnie, which means you're still trying to figure it out. And here we are heading into week 8? That's not a good thing.
I'll tell you who's figuring it out, man. Seattle's got a pretty good football team here, and some of the struggles that they've had at home sort of put them to bed last night. But again, you cannot turn the football over 4 times and only get 1 back in return, expect to win football games. That's an anomaly that we saw last night. Darnold was okay, 17-31, 213, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, passer rating of 73.7. They really didn't need to do all that much because of how bad the offense was for the Houston Texans. But your outlook on the Seattle Seahawks, Joe, with a chance to win the NFC West, do you think they have that shot?
They look offensively like they're still trying to figure some things out. But one thing we know for sure, they got a very good running game. They rushed for over 100 yards again last night against a very good defense, right? And they have a superstar top 5 receiver in the league. So that defense, that's on comparison to the Legion of Boom days there. That is a defense that is championship caliber. So I do think it's certainly looking up for Seattle moving forward.
Yeah, taking a look. Their next game is on the play the Commanders. I think that might be a Thursday night football game, if I'm for sure, whatever November 2nd is at this point. But anyway, it could be 2 days. It could have a bye week, but they do have some rest here at the Commanders. Then they come back home for the Cardinals. Also understand this. They've won 5 of 6 games now. Their 2 losses, Joe, that opening day loss to San Francisco with a legitimate chance to come back and win that game was foiled because Darnold fumbled. Then they lost to the Buccaneers 38-35. So even in the loss, they've been competitive. I like what I see, but also understand this. Some of those wins, Saints, Cardinals, Jaguars, Texans. Let's see when they get that elevated competition coming up next. Major League Baseball Game 7. What a game it was. We'll talk about it next.
And sometimes your offense could benefit your defense.
Yeah.
They are going to need to sustain drives, I believe. They can't go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and all of a sudden Price and Jeremiah Love are ripping your defense for 5 and 8 yards per carry. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day. So we'll see how this game plays out. I do favor the rushing attack and physicality of Notre Dame. The way they're running the football right now is as good as anybody.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I think I just smiled for the first time in relation to this game.
Yeah, my misery, right? My misery cost you a smile.
That was the price to
This
pay.
game is like watching paint dry. I mean, 21-0 in the first half. We have no action in the second. Brian Thomas, glass house. The guy can't stay on the field. His stone hands today.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Don't worry, too much. I don't think Kendrick Bourne is a bad play. He's probably a good streamer, but I don't think he's going to get you 10 for 140 again. And he got you 10 for 140 again. And now he gets Mac Jones again this week playing quarterback. And Mac Jones has just found this connection. Now, you do have a returning George Kittle. That's going to put a wrinkle in this offense. Eventually, you should get a returning Brock Purdy. So Bourne's value is at its zenith. That's when you try to sell guys off.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
After the first week of football, who'd have thought Alabama would be right back on the top? After a couple losses, Texas would have a chance to be back where they are. And we've all kind of watched Texas A&M and Ole Miss kind of jump right in the hunt. And, that Texas A&M's kind of become my dark horse because they can beat you offensively and they can beat you defensively.
The Bowden Blitz, only on SportsGrid.
What a game we saw last night. Game number 7 from north of the border in Toronto was the Mariners and the Blue Jays. And what a crazy series it was. If you would have told me that this would go 7, I'd have told you were nuts. If you had even told me we'd get even a game 6 back in Toronto, I would have probably told you were nuts. You take a look at the Mariners going up 2-0 before they even left Toronto, then go home, extends the series, goes back to Toronto. Exciting game number 6 and an unbelievable game number 7. Now, Toronto's going to move on to the World Series to take on the Dodgers, but how did we get here to this point? Last night, trading runs in the first inning, and then a solo shot in the third inning, and another solo shot in the fifth inning, gave the Seattle Mariners a 3-1 lead, looking like they were on their way in to the World Series until the 7th inning. And the biggest swing of the bat since 1993, when you saw it from the Toronto Blue Jays, Joe Carter, it was George Springer cracking that blast. Unbelievable theater in that building, a crescendo of cheers from the top shelf all the way down to the batter's box, Joe. Fun game to watch, specifically if you were a Blue Jays fan.
Oh, well, you forget it. I mean, it was the moment that you had been waiting for, because prior to that, Donnie, it really was. I mean, Seattle was keeping them at bay. They had Brian Wu come in there. He was dealing, keeping them in check. And then it was the 7th, and the bullpen moved to pull him and not go to Munoz, your all-star closer, who hasn't pitched very much in this series. Well, that's the move that will haunt them for a very long time. But how fitting is it that a guy, I believe him and Kyle Schwarber now with the most postseason home runs to their name currently, just unbelievable effort. And the dude who caught the ball, guess what jersey he was wearing? George Springer, of all things. Go figure.
Oh, we always know when that bullpen comes in or they're trying to handle a situation, the leadoff walks will kill you. A leadoff walk, a single, a sacrifice, and a bomb. And away you go, Toronto, into the night as a 4-3 victor. Here's John Schneider, the baseball manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, talking about the big win.
What does it feel like going to the World Series for the first time in 32 years?
Pretty cool. Pretty humbled to be part of it. You know what I mean? I've said it before, besides my wife and kids, this is what I pour my life into. So to be leading the team that's going back to the World Series for the first time in 32 years, kind of kind of hits me a little bit. And I couldn't be happier for every single guy on the team and in the clubhouse, not just the players, but the staff too. So we're going to enjoy tonight big time, and realize how hard it is to get here and then get back to work and get ready for the Dodgers.
Go. Moving on to the World Series. And by the way, asking the manager, how's it feel after 32 years to get to the World Series? He wasn't in Toronto for 32 years with that struggle, but we all get the point. The fans, yes, they are loving this. They can celebrate this, and you have a couple days off to decompress before Friday night's game number 1 against the Los Angeles Dodgers. But just to win that way, it almost feels like you're in the big show now, and what a performance it was to get there. And all the stress that you had over that 7-game series was incredible, man. It just was.
Yeah, and I thought it was, Schneider made a couple of interesting moves there. He obviously didn't trust his bullpen, Donnie, because you're bringing in Gausman in relief, and then you bring in Chris Bassett in the 8th inning as well. So you had to bring in 2 starters in those most crucial innings there late because you didn't trust what you have in the bullpen. That's going to be something to keep an eye on moving forward in this World Series against the Dodgers. Because that bullpen better figure it out in a big way against that lineup.
Cal Raleigh hit 300 in the playoffs and also hit a solo home run last night in game number 7. It just wasn't good enough. To the victors, we like to say, go the spoilers, but also there's the opposite end of that spectrum, and devastating loss here. Here's Cal Raleigh.
What's the feeling in the room right now?
It just sucks. Hurts. Yeah.
Clearly, this is a very emotional time for you and everyone else. Just what's going through your mind right now?
Just thinking about what we could have done better. You look back a lot of points in the game, and where you could have taken advantage of, or even the series, and. It hurts, but I don't want that to take away from, like I said, I'm proud of the guys in this room. I thought we fought all the way to the end. Like I said, it was a great group of guys, and I love every single one of them.
Yeah, there's Cal talking about that loss, which makes it even worse because everybody's been in a sporting event. I don't care what level you played at. You make it to a championship game and you just get smoked out. Yeah, it hurts. It was like, man, we gave our best effort. You have a 3-1 lead in the bottom of the 7th inning. You are already thinking about, man, we're going to make the World Series, how exciting this is. And it gets ripped out from under you in one swing of the bat from George Springer. That's got to be a tough pill to swallow for the boys in Seattle.
It is. I mean, and listen, you had 2 shots at closing it out. You had a game 6 and a game 7, and you just didn't get the hits that you needed. But we're talking, Toronto is the epitome of a good and borderline elite hitting team that also can throw the home run in there and make life miserable for pitchers. And all the edges that they had from a pitching standpoint were gone because Toronto is hitting guys from first to third because they're hitting singles to right field. They're not always swinging for the fences. When you hit almost 300 in a postseason this far, you're doing a lot of things very well at the plate. You're not striking out. All Seattle did was strike out in big moments. So, I think they're going to be fine moving forward. It's heartbreaking, but I don't think this is the last that we've heard of this Mariners team with all these young guys there.
No, continue to add on, but you're right about the batting average for the Blue Jays. Like everybody in the lineup hits, man. You don't have any free outs, and you have solid performances. You even include sacrifice bunts when you need them. Toronto did a lot of good stuff. Did the best stuff there. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the playoffs hitting .442, the ALCS MVP, and deservedly so. That's Vladdy.
Yeah, you got to love it, too. I mean, the guy's been from the Yankee series to start right on through. He's been an absolute machine, and everyone feeds off him. He's the clear leader of this Toronto Blue Jays team.
Such good stuff, too. And also with that emotional victory on a Monday night, you get Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to decompress. Friday night, and also keep in mind, this is not a Dodgers home game. Toronto, again, game number 1 in the World Series. They'll be home. That should be fun stuff to kick off your weekend. We got more NFL news and notes coming up next. You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in and play really good defense and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point. But if we see one of those performances 17-14 Texas.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, come on.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year. And I think big picture, they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
We've had an undefeated regular season a couple times in the NFL. The Patriots, of course, did it before losing in the Super Bowl to the Giants. The 72 Dolphins, of course, did it en route to a Super Bowl win. But to go winless is harder than to win every single game. And my New York Jets are well on their way to doing this.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Right back here on a Tuesday morning, hitting some NFL news and notes as we project forward to the next week in the NFL, which is certainly approaching quickly here. Minnesota and Los Angeles still tangle on Thursday Night Football, but the game we're going to talk about here for a moment is that Jets-Cincinnati game. Not from a Cincinnati perspective, but also who is going to be the starting quarterback for the New York Jets. Here's Aaron Glenn looking for his first win and also looking for his quarterback.
Well, that's something that, I want to continue to look at. Again, it's early on Monday, so I said this yesterday that there's a lot of thought that goes into that. For me personally, and then being able to get with the staff, and then just being able to ask other coaches that have been in the situation, how would they handle that? So I'm not running away from the question at all, Rich. The thing is, I want to make sure that I make the right decision, and I don't want to make rash decisions either.
I actually think what he's saying here, to be honest, with being kind, is both of my quarterbacks suck. Like, you're asking me to make a decision on who's going to suck less this weekend. My football team sucks right now. Yeah. We're really bad. So I can't make any decisions until I clear my head by Friday at this point. But he should have turned the question on the press and be like, who would you start based on what we have, right?
Donnie, the fact that it's here we are, right, heading into week 8, and this guy on a Monday has no idea who is, not because of injury, not because he has no idea who his starting quarterback is because he needs to think about it. If you need to think about it in week 8 as to who your starting quarterback is, it's already over, Donnie. It's a waste of, it doesn't matter who you roll out there. It doesn't matter. It's over.
Yeah, you have a veteran in Tyrod Taylor. We're not saying he's the end-all, be-all. Hey, you should have started from day number 1. You could have been a playoff team. Nobody's saying that. But anybody who's ever watched Justin Field play the quarterback position understands it's not going to work. It's not going to change overnight. He's on his 3rd organization and looks worse than he did maybe even as a rookie. He's unbelievably talented. You can use him in short packages here with short yardage situations. But also, why can't you just put him at tight end, Joe? Like, I know, it's so disrespectful to say that. Justin Fields is an amazing talent. You're telling me he can't be a tight end in his NFL as good as Cade Otton? Come on.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. It really is. It's absolutely ridiculous. They should have figured this out, Donnie. And I think we all knew this right? 2 years into his career. Like, as soon as we knew him, we've seen this before. There's no reason for him. The guy is an amazing athlete. Can't we find something, anything else to utilize him in? Because quarterback is clearly not the position for him.
No, certainly not at this point. At least, again, credit the Jets. They're losing. They're going to lose badly the rest of the year. They picked a quarterback saying, maybe we can rekindle this and just give a look-see to. The look-see is done. He can't play quarterback at all.
Exactly.
Tyrod Taylor's not your future. You're headed to the draft next year. So, Jets fans, again, it's a bad year, just like every season it feels like. But at least you know you probably should get the number 1 overall pick. And hopefully, at that time, you get the quarterback of the future here instead of putting on so many Band-Aids they have put on over the past couple years. Lamar Jackson, he's looking for a Band-Aid for his hamstring at this point. But as always, John Harbaugh is so horrible giving information out on injured players. We don't know if we're coming or going, or Lamar's out for the year playing this weekend. It is what it is.
Yeah, they got he did not practice yesterday, right? Everyone returns from the bye week yesterday, but he did not practice. And once again, Harbaugh playing coy, right? Like, I don't know, we'll have to see. We'll keep an eye on him. But I told you, Donnie, in the spread lines, that when that line opened up and we're at 6.5 right now, guess what? They're anticipating he's playing this week.
Yes, he is going to play this week, because why? If he doesn't, I don't know where Baltimore goes from here. Same thing with Washington. They're worried about their quarterback injury and also a significant hamstring injury. They don't think that is what it is. But let me understand this. Whether or not you have him, talking about Jaden Daniels playing this weekend, you're not beating the Chiefs. You will not see him this Sunday, and maybe for another week after that to rest that. It's one of those years where it's a knee, it's a hamstring. You just stay injured, and that's what happened to Daniels.
And again, I'd be in no rush to bring this kid back into this situation and this team right now, because it is not good at all. And all you're going to be doing is asking him to drop back like Baker Mayfield 50 times in a game, Donnie, because you're never playing from in front. That's a problem.
Brock Purdy came back a little bit too early, re-injured himself, trying to fight his way back. We'll see if he practices this week and plays. If not, maybe another week of Mac Jones here.
There's a situation where, okay, they can hold down the fort until Purdy can get healthy there. Obviously, he's not going to hurt you. He's already proven that.
Dre Greenlaw, the Denver Broncos, he let it be known how he was unhappy with some certain referee calls to end that game, and some verbal abuse was handed out, and he suspended 1 game. Should be verbal abuse towards those refs, man. Come on now.
Tell us how you really
bad refs.
Tell us how you really
Tell us how you really think of the game suspension. Hour number 2. We'll tell you how we really think next. You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy, because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see, because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point, but if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas
in the fourth quarter,
yeah, come on,
right? I mean, really? I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
We've had an undefeated regular season a couple times in the NFL. The Patriots, of course, did it before losing in the Super Bowl to the Giants. The 72 Dolphins, of course, did it en route to a Super Bowl win. But to go winless is harder than to win every single game. And my New York Jets are well on their way to doing this.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.